Welcome to Tom's True Crime. Today we take you to Springfield, Missouri, home to the Bakervoss family. James Daniel Bakervoss, who went by Daniel, his wife Aria, their two daughters, 18-year-old Madison and 16-year-old Layla, and a son, 10-year-old Liam. Aria and Daniel had been together for many years. Daniel was in his last year of his computer science degree at the University of Texas at Austin when he met Aria, who was in her first year. They were both ambitious and bright students and shared a lot in common. Friends said that they were the couple everyone was always trying to live up to, and everyone knew they would be successful when they graduated. They soon married and had their first daughter, Madison, and in 1999, an opportunity came along. Daniel was offered a job as technology director in Springfield, Missouri. It was not only a very well-paying job, but a well-respected one too. They settled into a nice home and had two more children, Layla and Liam. Neighbors said they were a key part of the community, always involved with everything and keen to welcome new people to the area, with Aria often baking cakes and making food for everyone. Madison and Layla were well-behaved and doing well academically. The teens were also in a band where they both played and sang, often showcasing their talents around town. Neighbors said that, as cliché as it sounded, they really were the all-American family, and a lot of people in the area really admired them. But all was not as it seemed. One day, Aria's sister Charlotte got a call. Aria wanted to confide in her about the true state of their marriage. She told Charlotte that over the years, Daniel had changed. He had started giving her curfews and an allowance, which he supervised and scrutinized, demanding to see receipts for all of her purchases, even everyday things like food. He would demand sex every night at 8 p.m. exactly, and everything she did in the house had a timer on it. She said she did everything he asked to keep the peace, but things were getting worse and she felt trapped and scared. Aria told her sister she wanted to look for an outlet, something that was just hers that he couldn't control. She decided to join a local gym around the children's school hours and Daniel being at work. Friends said that she was there so much that she was eventually hired as a fitness instructor. A completely different career path, but something she was excited to do. To her surprise, when Daniel found out she had been going, he approved, telling her as long as she was home on time to look after the children, there would be no issues. One day at the gym, Aria met Lily Adamberg, another personal trainer. From the get-go, the pair were inseparable. They had a lot in common and spent all their shifts together. Before long, a romantic relationship developed, and the couple began an affair. Charlotte said that she felt like her sister Aria was so mentally beaten down at that point. When she found someone that seemed to really care about her and didn't want to control her, the relationship just fell together naturally. Aria knew she had to come clean and tell Daniel everything. To her total shock, Daniel did not seem to have an issue with it, far from it in fact. He encouraged it and started messaging Lily, sending her flowers and asking her for a threesome. People say he saw it as an opportunity to spice up their marriage and sex life. He told Aria he didn't have any problem with it, as long as he was included and she didn't leave him. But Aria and Lily wanted no part of the triple he was suggesting. They wanted it to just be them. Daniel was embarrassed, and now he knew there was no chance of bringing Lily into the marriage. He wanted her out completely and the affair to stop. But Aria and Lily continued to see each other, and it seemed that Aria was now well and truly out of the marriage. After a few months, Daniel decided the best way to put a stop to it was to move the family out of town. He started looking for a career change elsewhere that would not allow this to happen. He got another job in Austin, Texas. And in June 2008, the family all moved out there. Daniel hoped that things would return to normal. Daniel thought that because Aria and Lily were now hundreds of miles apart, the affair would come to an end. But it didn't. Aria and Lily's relationship continued long distance. They would email and call and text each other and sneak visits halfway where they could. Safe to say, Aria and Daniel's marriage was now in a very bad and toxic place. For New Year's Eve, the Bakervoss attended a party back in Springfield. Many neighbors were in attendance, including Lily. At various points during the party, some guests saw Lily and Aria together, and it was glaringly obvious that something was going on. It had gone from being a secret between Daniel, Aria, and Lily to a very public and open thing. Daniel was mortified, and a huge fight broke out between him and Aria, one that carried on as soon as they left. Aria said Daniel pushed her so hard she smashed her head on the street. Friends said it was awful. The atmosphere had soured and everyone was talking about Daniel, and a matter of days later, Aria told Daniel she was filing for a divorce, started the legal proceedings, and moved into the spare room. Daniel spent hours calling Aria's family and friends one day, asking them to convince her not to go ahead with the divorce. Then on the next day, he was telling them she was leaving him for another woman and wanted to steal all his money and take the children. Lily started contacting Daniel directly, telling him to leave Aria alone and that she was never happy with him anyway. As March 2009 rolled around, things escalated even more, and after another fight became physical, Daniel was arrested. He told police that he had hugged Aria tightly and that she had resisted. Aria said he had violently grabbed her, giving her bruises. She gave a statement, which read as follows: "Over time, it has become apparent that Daniel is controlling. I have learned along the way that he is capable of using force. The issues vary, but I've figured out how to keep things from becoming ugly. When money was a problem, I wouldn't tell him what things, groceries, clothing, etc. cost. When it was about sex, I decided it was easier to give him what he wanted every night than to refuse. On occasions I would refuse. He has been known to be forceful and mean. I'm afraid it will escalate so far that someone is going to be seriously hurt." She pressed charges and she and the children moved out of the house completely. People said this was when Daniel became even more reclusive and erratic. He no longer wanted anything to do with Layla and Madison and only wanted to see his son Liam, saying he felt his daughters had failed him by taking their mother's side. This was made even worse when Layla and Madison said they accepted Lily and were happy to see their mother happy. Daniel was enraged. He referred to his daughters as rotting corpses. Friends said that he started stalking Aria and spying on her, getting into the house to install cameras and hacking into her emails. Police were then called to the house again when Aria found out that Daniel had slashed her car tires and was ripping out cables from outside the house. Daniel soon started slipping at work, choosing to show his colleagues family albums over and over, and leaving work unannounced to see what Aria was doing. Given everything that was going on, Daniel's manager quietly asked him to resign in September of 2009. This had affected his focus on the department in a way that is not likely to change in the near future, his boss said. Daniel was paid 2 months' salary and 1 month of severance. And with any other job prospects looking unlikely, Daniel moved back in with his parents. As they were now legally separated, he still owed Aria $3,000 a month in child support. Fast forward to Thanksgiving 2009. Aria, Madison, Layla, and Lily spent the holidays at Charlotte's house. 10-year-old Liam, however, spent it with Daniel. But Aria wanted all her children and Lily to visit her grandmother Nancy during the holiday period. So the next day, she went over to pick Liam up and make the trip over. 89-year-old Nancy lived in Cameron, Texas. Despite Aria and Daniel's many arguments and fights about the affair, a contentious pending divorce, questions about where the children would live, and issues with finances, Aria said she was hopeful that a resolution would soon be found. Daniel was just days away from going to court in regards to the incident several months earlier, and a hearing had been scheduled for January to start going through the divorce. As soon as the holiday period was over, everybody was optimistic that things might start to move forward more amicably. Saturday, November 29, 2009. Deputy Sheriff Jack Martinez was finishing up some paperwork in his office when a call came in about a suspicious vehicle in Cameron. It was just after 6 p.m., and the neighbor reported that a small truck was speeding around near their house. They had watched as the man pulled up, exited the vehicle, and started walking down the road. The couple then saw him come back, carrying a large object that they could not identify. Thinking he was stealing, they grabbed a flashlight and headed outside to confront him. He placed the object in the back seat, got back inside, and drove off just as they approached him. Deputy Martinez set off to see what was going on, but just a couple of minutes later, another call came in over the radio. It was coming from the same area, but this time it was far more alarming. No sooner had they received this harrowing call when a third person called in. They had opened their front door to find a 10-year-old child crying and asking for help. It was Liam Bakervoss. He said he needed help at Nancy Miller's house, as there had been a shooting. Officers said they knew it was going to be a bad scene, but nothing quite prepared them for what they would ultimately find. When they entered the home, the first person they found was 89-year-old Nancy. She was bleeding profusely on the kitchen floor and had been shot several times. She was still alive, but barely. They then found Aria Bakervoss in the dining area. She had been shot twice, and she was already dead. 18-year-old Madison was found behind the couch in the lounge and had also been shot twice, with the second shot likely paralyzing her instantly. She too was deceased, and police determined she was likely trying to hide as the gunman was inside. Deputy Sheriff Martinez then heard a faint voice calling for help from upstairs. It was Layla. Just like Nancy, she was alive, but only just. As Nancy and Layla were taken away, Layla turned to an officer and said, "Daniel," he said, "who's that?" "My dad," she said. Nancy identified Daniel as the shooter as well. Tragically, Layla succumbed to her injuries first and was pronounced dead shortly after getting to the hospital. Nancy was still fighting for her life, but sadly, it wasn't looking hopeful. There was one more person left who had been there, Liam, and little did the authorities realize he had witnessed a lot. Liam said he had been cleaning some old coins that he and Aria had found. As the two of them were standing at the sink, Daniel entered the house via the back door, holding a rifle, and shot at Aria. Liam said he ducked down and just ran as fast as he could to get out the back door. He then ran around to the front door, hoping to get back in and get to a phone. He carefully opened a door, hearing more shots ring out as he did so. He saw Daniel walking around, and he closed the door and ran for help instead. Police had already put out an alert to try and locate Daniel. A resident then spotted someone abandoning their vehicle in the middle of nowhere and running down a deserted road. She called in with a tip. They found the vehicle, and it matched the description of the one the neighbors had seen earlier that night, and felt confident it was Daniel's. A search of the vehicle found more ammunition and some unopened anxiety medications. A backpack was also found with some soap, towels, toilet paper, cotton balls, and some canned food. But Daniel was nowhere to be found. After 8 hours of searching, Daniel Bakervoss was finally located. The sheriff had a gun on him, and he had his hands in the air. It was now about 7 a.m., and he was wandering on the side of the road, looking confused, lost, and disheveled. He knew it was coming and turned to the officers and said, "I'm the guy you're looking for." He told them that he was armed with a revolver, as well as some pocket knives. They also found hundreds of dollars in cash, some gloves, a flashlight, and a hunting bag. He was arrested without incident and taken to the station. Daniel was fairly open and told the detectives about what happened in his personal relationship and the divorce. Daniel also told the sheriff about the New Year's Eve party and how Aria and Lily would sneak visits out of town. He said he was particularly upset when he realized that his daughters not only approved, but were traveling with Aria to meet Lily as well. Daniel Bakervoss was charged with first-degree murder and aggravated burglary. His bail was set at $10 million. Just after 4 p.m. on December 1st, Nancy Miller sadly passed away as well. In December 2010, Daniel had his preliminary trial where he entered a plea of insanity, the only defense against capital murder. His lawyers claimed that he had had a mental breakdown due to Aria's affair. They said this, coupled with the loss of his job and having to move in with his parents, had only added fuel to the fire. They said that the unopened medication in his car, ongoing erratic behavior, and the fact that he did not attempt to cover up what he had done was evidence that he was not of a sound state of mind, thus his plea of insanity was fair. His defense team argued that his mental health issues were so severe that it proved he had not premeditated anything. It was a total snap in that moment. At the time of the murders, his lawyer said that he was suffering from depression, hallucinations, and had obsessive-compulsive, narcissistic, and histrionic personality disorders. But the prosecution argued that it was definitely premeditated, and his behavior over the last year especially showed that this was all just building up to what he ultimately wanted to do, which was kill his wife and likely anyone else that stood in the way of that. Their expert psychiatrist stated that while Daniel had clinical depression, he was still capable of planning the murders. They also pointed to the fact that Daniel had not killed their son Liam, even though he was standing right there, showing this was a conscious decision. This was not someone that was out of control and had snapped in the moment. And after this, they brought in their star witness, Liam Bakervoss, who was now 12 years old and one can only imagine how difficult this must have been for him. He appeared via video link to bravely tell everybody what had happened. People in the court said that Liam was clear, concise, and unwavering, a child far more mature than his years. My dad came through the door and shot my mom. I just heard her collapse on the floor from the shot. I just caught a glimpse. I think she was holding her leg, Liam recalled. Some people in the courtroom said that the pictures of the crime scene were so bad, they physically had to look away, with some even crying. The prosecution spoke about the many allegations of abuse and controlling behaviors, and said this, again, proved his intention to hurt was always there, and when he finally lost complete control when they all moved out is when things escalated even more. Lily Adamberg also testified. She described Aria and Daniel's relationship as very abusive, saying she wanted to protect Aria from him. She also said that Daniel was more than happy for her and Aria to start a relationship and showed no signs of being bothered by it until he had to let Aria go. But she acknowledged that she had no physical evidence to prove this. It was all what she remembered and what she had heard from Aria. On August 25, 2011, after just 2 hours, the jury had reached a unanimous verdict. Daniel Bakervoss was found guilty of capital murder, and his pleas of insanity were not believed. This meant he would face the death penalty or life without parole. There were many victim impact statements given. Liam gave a short statement and said, "I do not want my dad to receive the death penalty because it would be hard on my grandparents. I do not want my whole family gone." After this, another week would pass while everyone waited to hear the results of the sentencing. Daniel Bakervoss showed no emotion as he heard his fate. The execution sentence comes as retribution for the shooting deaths of 4 family members. Court at this time sentences the defendant for the crime of capital murder to death. James Daniel Bakervoss opted not to speak on his own behalf and even asked if he could leave the room to avoid hearing the victim impact statements. The chief judge ordered him to stay. Charlotte Williams spoke of her grandmother, her 2 nieces, and her sister. "I loved Grandma Miller, Aria, Madison, and Layla very much. I will miss them until the end of my days. I still replay that frightening night over and over in my mind, just like watching an old movie reel." Bakervoss's attorneys say they will file a motion to withdraw that death sentence, and Bakervoss will be appointed an attorney for his automatic appeal to the Texas Supreme Court. Upon hearing he was sentenced to death, those in the courtroom said Daniel Bakervoss had no reaction, no remorse, no sadness, and no regret. The prosecutor said he only ever seemed to look proud of himself, often smirking and muttering sarcastic comments. As he exited the courtroom to begin his time, he shouted to his mother and father, "Take care of Liam so he's not raised by a bunch of freaks." While on death row, Daniel started writing letters to various people, including the lead prosecutor. He still showed no remorse, instead saying he felt a sense of relief for what had happened, as he was able to free Liam. His team appealed to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, citing numerous complaints, including the belief that there had been misconduct on the jury. They also stated that his mental health and insanity plea had not been taken into consideration. His appeal was denied. With this ruling, Daniel Bakervoss had now exhausted his direct appeals, but further appeals were still possible. And in January 2023, another appeal was lodged. Charlotte and Lily started organized runs in Springfield in honor of Aria to raise money for victims of domestic violence, and the community often comes together to remember the family and all the lives that were lost that night. According to sources, Liam went into the care of the state for a while before going to live with his grandmother and grandfather. He graduated high school and now works in Texas. It was a case that left the community shocked and hurting, 3 generations snatched away in a matter of minutes. And for Liam, who not only lost his mother, sisters, and great-grandmother in the most awful way, but witnessed it all as well, and then essentially lost his father too, it is incomprehensibly heartbreaking. The fact that he has come through it all despite everything is remarkable and a testament to his strength and perseverance against so many odds. Thank you for being with me on this episode of Tom's True Crime. If you are interested in more in-depth investigations into the most perplexing crimes, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. What are your thoughts about this case? Please share them with us in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe.